The Roundabout Theater Company has a terrific revival, well, we'll get into that, revival, new musical we could call it, of Stephen Sondheim and John Weidman's controversial but very compelling show, Assassins. Two of the reasons it is as terrific as it is are with us tonight. They are wonderful actors. We have Becky and Baker with us, who plays the woman who attempted to assassinate Gerald Ford. Right. Sarah Jane Moore, welcome to Theater Talk.
Thank you.
And wonderful actor Denis O'Hare, who plays Charles Guiteau, an assassin who's sort of got lost in history a bit, but you've rescued him from oblivion. Welcome to Theater Talk.
Thank you.
All right, I'm curious to know, you guys are doing this show, and there is this debate that's been waging on Broadway right now.
Which will have been resolved by the time
it will have been resolved, but I think we should.
Yes.
But we want to know from people who are actually in the show what you feel about the show. Is Assassins a revival, or is it a new musical? You do it every night. What is your feeling?
You know, I haven't really, I mean, I haven't paid attention to this very much.
We're doing the Dick Cheney, George Bush act. She looks at me and I go,
I think the only thing that I would miss is if Stephen and John Weidman couldn't be nominated. I mean,
right.
that to me would be the only sad part of either decision. I mean, the score is glorious and John Weidman is hilarious.
A lot of critics have pointed out that this is a show that was ahead of its time.
yes,
Whose time has come now, and that of all the shows on Broadway now, this is one that is really resonating with what's happening politically in the world today. And that seems to me to be a case for a show that has currency and should be looked at as new.
Yeah, I don't know the technical requirements to have something be a revival. You know, I know that the original production was an off-Broadway production that, while it wasn't a workshop, it meant to become something bigger. That production was meant to move and meant to flesh itself out. Right. So, in a weird way, I feel like the first production was not a full production that even the authors and the creators and the cast that was involved with were finished with. They wanted to go on and finish and then present the whole thing. And was it reviewed originally? It was reviewed. It was reviewed.
Yes, and Frank Rich gave it a bad review, which he is now revised.
Which is now recanted.
I love it.
Yeah.
But you know, but in terms of the technical requirements, it seems to me that if a play has not been done on Broadway and is now being done on Broadway, end of story.
Well, I think that, as I say, this will have been resolved the day before this show airs. But the argument.
Should we take bets?
Yeah. The argument for revivals is it can also be a revival if it's a classic in the canon.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so since those who would argue for revival say, well, this is an album, many have heard it, they know this score, is that really competitive with new things?
But how many people saw it ever?
Well, that's it. Not many. And the deeper point here, which I think you guys can speak to, is the impact that it has on audiences. I mean, there is the image now of musicals, and a lot of the musicals on Broadway are pretty a mindless family entertainment, and this is not what you're going to get with Assassins. No. And I'm curious to know how is the audience responding to this difficult piece?
You know, it's fascinating because it's a real mixed bag. You see people weeping at times in the audience, and I know that there have been.
And you see people who are offended. The night I was there, people who just I cannot accept a musical. They walk out. They walk out.
There have been some walkouts.
Now, what offends them?
Well, we've had now 2 audience discussions, and we've had about 400 people stay, which is a little unheard of for an audience discussion. I mean, usually you get 50 hardcore academics who want to make a nice point, and these are people who are upset, and they want resolution, and they want us to release something in them. You know, they want us to make it better, so they stay for a discussion. And one woman, you know, she said, you've got all these accolades. And we're like, oh, we know where this is going. All these accolades and wonderful things. And that last song just really makes me angry. And we went, something just broke? Oh, no, everybody has the right to be happy. Right. That just made her so angry, the idea that these people are coming out and making a case that we have a right to be happy. And Mark Kudish, who was at the talkback, gave a brilliant answer. And he just said, you know, we're not making a statement that these people are correct.
Right.
We're simply saying this is their point of view, and this point of view exists.
Right.
It certainly exists. You know, it existed pre 9/11. It certainly exists post 9/11. It has always existed.
Right.
You ignore people to your detriment. If you don't listen to what they have to say, you will listen to what they do.
I think you could make the case that. I mean, to me, the tension in the show seems to be that, on the one hand, you do have these assassins that you all play, these marginalized figures, people who bought into, it's Willie Loman, and indeed in John's book he makes reference to Death of a Salesman, people who bought into the American dream and it didn't work out for them, and they got left behind.
Which is most of us, you know.
Right. On the other hand, though, they're genuinely psychotic and crazy in some ways. And it never resolved itself, but maybe that's because this is what was going on inside the minds of these people that was never resolved.
Well, I think what's wonderful about this piece is that, you know, it's not fiction. It's fictionalized, but this is history. This is true. This country has had 4 presidents assassinated. We're not making this up.
And more shot at.
You know, so you kind of go, it's a meditation on why. And there are no answers provided, but it's certainly the space given to the audience to kind of consider why in this country, a democracy, a place where we allow everybody to have their say, why does it produce people who want to kill the president? And, you know, I think in Charles Guiteau's case, he killed the president, well...
Garfield he shot.
Garfield, yeah. I mean, Guiteau was insane. He was insane. But he also had odd reasons, one of which was he wanted to save the Republican Party from a disastrous split between the stalwart faction and the Garfield faction. And if only Grant had been nominated, all this would have been saved. He also wanted to make Chester Arthur president. He also said that God told him to do it. He also said he liked Garfield. He meant nothing personal by it.
God's telling a lot of people to do some funny things.
Exactly. Yeah, God's got lots of phones going.
Yeah.
And in the case of Sarah Jane Moore, have you been able to crack her?
Oh, it's fascinating because really all she wanted to do, she wanted protection. She had been working, her life really was as chaotic as it comes across on stage. 5 marriages, 4 children, multiple jobs. You had multiple jobs as well. It's kind of, it's interesting, but that kind of chaotic lifestyle. She had been working with the radical underground, and at 45, middle-aged housewife, all these kids and marriages, she's aligned herself with this, and the FBI came to her. They were trying to crack the Patty Hearst case, and so she started doing a little glamorous double agenting. And when she told the underground, they were angry with her, and one of her friends was killed, she assumed by them. She was getting death threats, and she went back to the FBI, and they cut her loose. They said, "You're no good to us anymore." So she was trying to get arrested. She was looking for protection. I don't think she, I mean, from the things
so
that
shoot Gerald Ford. Well, that is you will be protected
in a way.
unless you're Lee Harvey Oswald,
Where
in which
is
case
she
it
now?
didn't work out.
She's in prison. I think she's in California in a prison. Just turned 74, has been in prison for 29 years.
And you've had no any correspondence with
Mary
her?
Catherine has with Squeaky, though,
Yeah,
with
2 letters.
Lynette Fromm. Yeah.
Really? Did
Yeah.
she send the letters to her, or
She did.
Squeaky send the letters to
No,
Mary Catherine?
Mary Catherine wrote first, and now she's gotten like 3 or 4 letters.
Yeah.
Do we know
I'd
if
be
Squeaky's
scared to
Do we know if Squeaky's listening to the soundtrack, the original cast album of Assassins?
She's aware of the production,
Yes.
and she didn't seem to be terribly angry about it, but she did say a lot of things have been misunderstood and oversimplified, and she felt the portrayal was, I mean, she's incredibly articulate. She felt the portrayal
you think
was
she's still mad?
simplistic. No. Oh, angry?
Squeaky. No, I mean crazy.
Crazy?
No, I don't think
Squeaky's
so.
not crazy anymore?
Judging by the letters, I wouldn't think so.
don't
She
think so.
seems to justify that the times were, you know, she says to Mary Catherine's obviously quite a bit younger than she, and she keeps saying, you know, you had to live in those times. They were lying to us.
Well, also lots of drugs.
Yeah, take
Actually,
that
well,
much
that's-
time
that's-
doing
Lots
that.
of drugs, you know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah, oh, they were on drugs all the time.
No sleep,
the
lots of
Manson.
drugs.
I must say, though, it's interesting that Sarah J. Moore was a double agent for the government. It sort of, you understand why we have the intelligence failings that we do.
I know, she was, you know.
Really?
There's been a lot of talk with a new song that was put into Assassins, Something Broke. And Steve and John both have said it kind of adds a dimension to the show that wasn't there before, which is to say we're going to look at real people away from the crazies for a while and see the impact on normal people in the country. Do you feel that the show is made stronger because of that song, and does it pull the show together in a way that perhaps the show didn't function as well the first time around?
I don't know how the show functioned the first time. I didn't see it, and I only listened to the cast album once because I didn't want to have that in my head.
Yeah.
But what I know from what people have said who've seen it, and what I think is that after Oswald assassinates Kennedy, that's the event that makes the play real for everyone in the audience. It stops being a metaphor. It stops being history, and it becomes real. Whether you live through it or your parents lived through it, you know who Kennedy was, and Kennedy is an unabashed saint in this country in living memory. So it makes the play suddenly drop in. And I think it turns the audience against us very quickly and very firmly. And the audience needs time to process it, and that song does that. That song gives, and also the song in a way says, the play, as a play says, we're going to present you more than one point of view here.
Right.
This is what these things do to people. This is the impact.
Right.
It's not, that's why people say the play trivializes violence. I kind of go, which play did you see? That song, if nothing else, says this is the impact. And then, against that background, that relief, the assassins reemerge, and we get to see them for all of their...
And this time you're sinister. I mean, when you, even you,
Absolutely.
because you're not sinister, Sarah J. Moore at all. I mean, you're Gaddafi and kind of lovable in this odd way.
But as I was saying to Michael, Michael was not born when Kennedy was
Thank you,
assassinated, yes. But for those of us who were, you know, very much alive, that was exactly how we responded to it. This has happened, and you so crystallized in your mind what you were doing.
And that's what we get the walkouts. It's funny, we've got more walkouts after Oswald shoots him, and the thing, you know, and the image.
Yeah,
and I think they walk out in anger or whatever. Maybe they just can't take it. Maybe it's just a sense of, I don't want to see this.
it's too painful.
It's too painful, because a part of me thinks, I get a little bit confused. I kind of go, well, again, we're not making this up. This has happened. There are many, many books written about this. You can see this on the History Channel. You know, it's about glorifying violence. Just watch E! Entertainment. Watch the History Channel. I mean, it's just violence 24 hours a day.
But rarely do you get to see it through the assassin's eyes. I mean, that's the journey that people aren't used to. You
Well,
get to
that's
see.
I mean, Stephen Sondheim looks at the world in a different way from the rest of us.
Yes.
But, you know, no different than Shakespeare and Iago.
Yes.
I mean, no different than Richard III.
Yeah.
I mean, the great writers always take an unconventional point of view.
And certainly, psychotic assassins looking at American history qualifies as unconventional.
What's so heartbreaking about this play, and why I love it so much, is that everybody in this play, I mean, everyone breaks my heart.
It's hard to embrace, though. I think that's why people have trouble with it, because the characters are really well fleshed out. And you see the nice sides of them. I mean, you're a very funny, lovable kind of guy that you're playing, and so are you.
Up to a point.
Up to a point. And
Yeah.
then you get to that point, and what do you, as an audience member, what do you do with these people?
Right.
But as a society, what do you do with these
And
people?
there's the question.
Exactly.
Anyway, it's a terrific, thought-provoking,
Sorry.
and very funny. We should get that across, too. Assassins is quite witty.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Well, your scene.
I have some of the best comedic material I've ever had.
And it's at the Roundabout till June, I guess, a possible extension?
I think
July?
Have they officially now said July 4th?
I don't know. They're still talking
They
to.
put a notice up, I think.
Oh, yeah. I think
They've now
till
sold
July.
tickets
I
through
think
July
they're.
4th.
Yeah.
If I were a
We
betting
maybe-
woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
It
we're
would
going.
be,
I
yes.
think we're going.
I'm telling you, put your money on the table. We've got the revival thing.
That's right. Dennis O'Hare and Becky Ann Baker, thank you very much for being our guest tonight on Theater Talk.
Thanks
Great
for having
pleasure.
us. Appreciate it.
Everybody's got the right to some sun to shine. Everybody, not the sun, but maybe one of its beams. One of its beams. Rich man, poor man, black or white. Pick your apple, take a bite. Everybody just pull tight to your dreams. Everybody's got the right to their dreams.
Night brought the debut of the Roundabout Theater Company's revival of Stephen Sondheim's Assassins.
This dark musical, with a book by John Weidman, tells the stories of 9 presidential assassins and would-be assassins, from John Wilkes Booth to John Hinckley Jr. It was originally produced off-Broadway in 1991, yet as actor Mario Cantone points, it's even more resonant today. Cantone plays Samuel Bick, who, back in 1974, unsuccessfully attempted to hijack a plane and crash it into the White House.
When I do those monologues, which are tapes, they're not the real tapes. They're, you know, they're not even really based on the tapes. But one is to Leonard Brisson, and he says, "I'm going to crash a plane into the White House and incinerate Dick Nixon." There's like a hush. It's very interesting.
Now, the Roundabout had intended to mount a revival of Assassins back in the fall of 2001, but in the wake of 9/11, the material was deemed inappropriate and the production was postponed until now. We spoke with actor Denis O'Hare about the timing of this production. O'Hare plays Charles Guiteau, the man who shot President Garfield.
I think doing it now is an excellent time. I think it's just what the country needs, just what the city needs. We need to ask questions that are not popular. We need to talk about things that are not popular. we need in this country, especially to remember that there are people who have motivations out there that we don't seem very interested in, and we should be very interested in their motivations, because they're not going to stay away from us just because we think we're wonderful.
And stay tuned later in our show for Roma Torre's review of telling you the Roundabout's production of Stephen Sondheim's Assassins has finally opened on Broadway. How does it fare now that it's here? Joining us now with her review is Roma Torre. Roma.
Thank you, Donna. Well, no matter what you may think of the subject, and there are those who will no doubt find a musical about presidential assassins revolting, the production of Assassins is superlative. From music to book to technical design to direction and performances, this is a flawless collaboration.
And all you have to do is crook your little finger, hook your little finger out.
Stephen Sondheim's idea for a musical that weaves the true stories of people who aimed to murder presidents is indeed unorthodox, and he may not win any new legions of fans with this one, but there is no denying that the concept is classic Sondheim, ingeniously realized. It is dark and intelligent, and Sondheim's score, blending clever lyrics with a crazy quilt of folk tunes and complex melodies, is stunning. If you buy into the idea, John Weidman's book masterfully turns the American dream upside down, suggesting that some people will do anything for a shot at that holy grail of American life, fame. The show does not excuse the heinous acts, but it doesn't entirely condemn the assassins either, offering instead an array of motivations, whether the assassins were just plain crazy or politically driven or insanely desperate types. They represent an underbelly of Americans who make for outrageously theatrical characters. And director Joe Mantello, clearly inspired by this vision of warped Americana, has assembled a most excellent ensemble. Michael Cerveris, playing John Wilkes Booth as a disturbed Southerner, is a study of civilized madness. Other standouts include Mario Cantone as failed Nixon assassin Samuel Bick, who actually planned to crash a 747 into the White House. His frighteningly hysterical rant is chilling. Squeaky Fromme and Sarah Jane Moore, who separately tried to kill President Ford, are featured in a terrific scene that brilliantly captures society's delusions. Mary Catherine Garrison and Becky Ann Baker are superb. Denis O'Hare delivers a photo-negative variant of his Tony-winning role in Take Me Out, playing Charles Guiteau, a bright but insane man who murders President James Garfield. And how bizarre to see TV's Doogie Howser, Neil Patrick Harris, going psycho as Lee Harvey Oswald. Robert Brill's marvelous giant scaffolding set, designed to look like the underside of a carnival, is enhanced by Jules Fisher and Peggy Eisenhower's terrific lighting. And as a demonic sideshow barker, Mark Kudish, with shiny teeth and shaved head, perfectly completes this hellish landscape.
Which man